Hi, everybody. So today you're going to start out, and yesterday you should have, whether in class or at home, watched pretty much all the way until the end of the debate. So the first thing you're going to do today is click on Thoughts on the First Presidential Debate and respond to the little prompt that I have right here, 4 to 5 sentences. As always, I know politics can be a hot button issue, and you may feel strongly about one candidate or the other, but I ask that you please remember that you're writing this on a school message board, and that all of your answers are appropriate, academic, and responsible. After that, you're going to watch this video, which congratulations if you're hearing my voice are already doing, and you're going to click on Electoral College questions, and you are going to complete these questions as I go through my PowerPoint slide that I'm going to open, and your attendance for today is going to be the discussion board, but make sure you submit this too, because over the weekend, this is going to be a quick 25-point grade for participation and making sure that you answer the questions and understand the Electoral College, since you have an election coming up literally next Tuesday, and the Electoral College in this country is what decides who is going to be the next president. So I'm going to start the PowerPoint, and you should be able to hopefully have this video pulled up at the same time as the questions so you can walk through it and respond to the questions at the same time. So here we just have the New York State Standard. You can read through that if you wish, but it's my objective or my hope that by the end of today, students will be able to explain the positives and negatives of our Electoral College system and basically just be able to tell me how it works and why it's set up that way. So the Republican government isn't working out. I'll elect Democrats. And if you've seen Finding Nemo, one of my favorite movies, you know how Dory is. This Democratic government isn't working out. I'll elect Republicans. So with that and knowing kind of reading that in the Dory voice, if that's what you're doing, respond to that first question and tell me what you think the overall idea with that is. I look forward to kind of hearing your interpretations on that. This one I find a little bit more interesting. Hopefully, you recognize that the elephant represents Republicans, as we've gone over, and the donkey represents Democrats. They're holding up a sign, the system is rigged, happy with the election, throws it away. Now the Democrats are upset with it. So now they're saying, the Electoral College is wrong. Whatever side is usually on the winning side is happy no matter how it turns out. And whoever's on the losing side is always going to come up with reasons as to why it happened that way. But I also look forward to seeing your interpretations of this on the answer sheet as well. So the Electoral College system, it's the system that elects the president and vice president of the United States only. It gets its power from the U.S. Constitution. It's not an actual college. It has nothing to do with college. It's basically a group of electors from each state that choose where each state's electoral votes go. This is only used for the presidential election. No other elections in the United States use this. The Electoral College consists of 538 electors. You need 270 electoral votes to be elected president. So one of the two candidates has pretty much always gotten 270 electoral votes. If not, it ends up going to the House of Representatives, and they decide and discuss amongst themselves. That hasn't happened, especially in a very long time. So it's whatever president reaches 270 electoral votes or more is who becomes president. So where does that number come from? Each state has the same number of electives as it does members in Congress. So each one has at least two because of senators, and House of Representatives, as we know, is based on population. So every state plus Washington, D.C. has at least 3 electoral votes. And then if you have, as your population increases along with the House of Representatives, the more votes you get. So the more people living in an area, the more votes that come from that state. So continuing on, the positives of it keeps the generally dumb public from controlling things and gives smaller states at least some power in picking the president, and there's no mob mentality. Now, what I mean by generally dumb public, this is not me in my views coming out. Basically, the founding fathers didn't trust the general public. They didn't trust, they thought the general public was uneducated, and therefore they needed to have some type of system in place to stop people from electing somebody terrible. Not only does it give small states some power, in some cases it gives them more power because they get at least 3 electoral votes, but you might have the same number of people living in a small state as you do one county in a place like, California, New York City, that type of thing. Negatives. The most popular president doesn't always win. It is possible to have more votes total and still lose the election. Individual voters have less power, and bigger states have much more influence than smaller ones. And winner takes all, except in two states as of now, which are Nebraska and Maine. What that means, if Donald Trump wins by one vote in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump gets all of the electoral votes from Pennsylvania. So even though it might only have been decided by one vote, the winner take all system, if whoever wins the popular vote in each state gets all of the electoral votes from that state, no matter if they win by one vote or win by 5 million votes. Again, the two exceptions of this are Nebraska and Maine. So you can see right here, and this is might not be exactly updated to this election, but it's very close, at least for the last one, how many electoral votes each state gets. Now you can see the big ones: California, New York, Texas, Florida, Ohio. Some of the most major ones: Pennsylvania at 21. Again, remember, this is at least two from each state, plus however many representatives you have in the House of Representatives, which is how this is determined. In Washington, D.C., even though it's not a state, we talked about the amendment that gave them 3 electoral votes. So here you see blue and red all the way back from 1952, every 4 years, all the way up to 2012. Remember, hopefully you can remember that red represents Republicans and that blue represents Democrats. And we've talked about blue and red states a little bit, and you can see there's a lot that change as we go through. A blue state is one that usually votes Democratic, and a red state is one that usually votes Republican. The ones that switch are called swing states. And swing states are the most important to the election because New York State, no matter what, especially because of New York City, Buffalo, Albany, Syracuse, Rochester, these urban centers, you can see in pretty much all of these recent elections, New York State has been blue for my entire lifetime. Same thing with Texas, except the Republican way. You can see the last time was 1976 was the last time that Texas voted for a Democrat and with a popular vote. So while everybody's vote is important, they are not all equal. People that live in swing states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and areas like that in Florida that goes back and forth a lot, as you can see, those votes are really important because that is where the election is decided. Everybody knows New York and California are going to go blue. Everyone knows all the electoral votes from Texas are going to go to the Republican candidate. But it comes down to the swing states and see which candidate is more popular in those swing states in order to win the election. This is what it looked like when Obama beat Mitt Romney in 2012. You can see that he won by just over 3 million votes, but he got to 332 electoral votes, and that's what really matters. But again, you can see the red and blue states that we just talked about. Obama won because he was able to win Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, the biggest swing states that have the most electoral votes. This is what it looked like with the election that you're most familiar with in 2016 when Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. So again, you see Texas is a red state, California, New York still blue. The reason that Trump is going to win, remember he needs that 270 mark, is because in the swing states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, he won all of them. Whoever in this election, if Biden or Trump is able to win Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida, pretty much those three states right there could really decide it. Now, is it always the way it happens? No, of course, anything could happen. But if we look at history and statistics, this is the way it normally happens. But you can see, even though Donald Trump received the most electoral votes, and he won quite handsomely there at 304, it wasn't that close. He actually lost the popular vote race. So Hillary Clinton is going to receive overall more votes for president than Donald Trump is, but the electoral votes are what matter. And then you can see the three different other parties are going to gather some votes, but really, in comparatively, it's a very, very small group. So it's been 5 times where a candidate has won the popular vote but lost the election. Andrew Jackson in 1824. It's happened 2 times in recent history. Al Gore in 2000 lost to George W. Bush. Hillary Clinton in 2016 lost to Donald Trump. So you can see in the past 20 years, two Democratic candidates have received the most votes, but lost to Republican candidates. And Democrats might say, "Oh, that's not fair," but everyone knows the same rules that you're playing with. And George W. Bush and Donald Trump were able to win, those battleground or swing states. In the case of an electoral college deadlock, or if no candidate receives the majority of votes, a contingent election is held. Then, this is what I was saying earlier, the election of the president goes to the House of Representatives. Each state representative casts one vote for one of the top three contenders. Whoever has the most at the end is determined the winner. Only two presidential elections have ever been determined that way, and literally not in 200 years. And that's something that is very, very doubtful to happen again. Mr. Weaver, what about other people that run for office? Great question. All of the following are elected by popular vote only. Governors are elected by the state population. Senators are elected by the entire state population. House of Representative members are represented by each district that they live in. Mayors are elected by the cities, and so forth. The only people that are elected by the Electoral College are the president. So there are also state senators, state representatives, and more state positions that serve in the New York State government in Albany, not in Washington D.C. like federal senators and representatives do. So if you hear someone, if anybody watches The Office, they always refer to Angela's boyfriend or husband as the state senator. He wasn't someone that was in Washington D.C. He would have been in their local state government, in Pennsylvania. So if you hear state representatives, that means that they represent you like in your state, New York State government down in Albany. If you hear federal, that means when they go to actual Washington, D.C. So I'm hoping that that answers all the questions. I'm going to take a look to see if there's any that I didn't answer. Cool. So you should have been able to get all of these down. So really, when you're waiting for the election next Tuesday and you're looking through it, popular vote does not matter. It really comes down to the electoral vote in each place. And remember, in every state but two of them, if you win the popular vote in a state by one state, you get all of the electoral votes. It actually gives smaller states, obviously not a bigger say because, California has 55, the Dakotas have 3, but per person, your vote counts for more in these smaller states than it does in the bigger states. So the point of the electoral college system being set up was to show, fair representation across the entire country. People that are against it say it shouldn't be that way. It should be whoever gets the most votes. But then there's worry that, LA, New York City, Atlanta, and, Chicago would determine every single election. I personally, for not, Democrat, Republican, one way or the other, I am personally not a fan of the Electoral College because I think that in general, citizens, whoever has the most votes should win. I don't know if that's a controversial thing to say. I mean, it is probably if you conduct it to this election, but I think just, whoever gets the most votes, that's how it should work. But clearly, according to the Constitution, it's not. And we've gone over and talked about the reasons why that is. So what do you think? And at the bottom here, 13, do you think the Electoral College is a good system or should we use popular vote? I told you I like popular vote. I think it means more, but convince me. Do you agree with me, or do you think it should be the electoral? Do you think it should be the popular vote as well, or do you think it should be the electoral college system? Thank you for your attention on this Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and I'm excited to see how the election turns out next week. Thanks.